From severe weather being likely over the next few days to Typhoon Jangmi continuing to strengthen as it heads up towards Japan, this is your Chonkita weather forecast. First of all, looking at our severe weather outlook today from the Storm Prediction Center, you can see we now have a large slight risk of severe weather extending from western South Dakota all the way into central Kansas and north central Oklahoma. For our tornado risk today, we have a 5% tornado risk mainly across southwestern Nebraska into north central Kansas, and we have a SIG 1 area from southwestern Nebraska all the way into south central Kansas. So if you're in that area, you could see an isolated strong tornado today, and otherwise we have a 2% tornado risk from southwestern South Dakota into north central Oklahoma, where we could see an isolated tornado or two today. So if you're in the McCook, Nebraska area all the way down towards the north central Kansas area, I would be watching out for maybe a couple tornadoes, maybe a strong one being possible later today. Looking at our damaging wind risk, we have a 15% wind risk from western South Dakota all the way into north central Oklahoma, and we have a SIG 1 area mainly from northeastern Colorado into southwestern Nebraska all the way into western Oklahoma and northwestern Texas. So if you're in that area, you could see some damaging wind gusts potentially reaching over 75 miles an hour later today. And otherwise, we have a 5% damaging wind risk from eastern Montana all the way into central Arkansas and also into western Texas, where you can see some isolated damaging wind gusts potentially reaching up to 65 miles an hour. And for our hail risk today, you can see we have a 15% hail risk from western South Dakota all the way into north central Oklahoma. We have a SIG 1 area mainly across western Nebraska into western and central Kansas. So in that area, you could see some hail from the size of golf balls to the size of baseballs later today. So make sure you're prepared for that. Now, looking at our Day 2 SPC severe weather outlook, you can see for tomorrow we have a slight risk of severe weather mainly from southeastern South Dakota into eastern Nebraska and western Iowa. For our 2% tornado risk tomorrow, that extends from mainly central South Dakota all the way into northeastern Kansas and northwestern Missouri, where we could see an isolated tornado or two tomorrow. For our damaging wind risk, we have a 5% damaging wind risk in the marginal risk area, a 15% damaging wind risk in the slight risk area. No significant wind gusts are expected, but we could still see some isolated to scattered damaging wind gusts from 60 to 70 miles an hour tomorrow. And for our hail risk, we just have the same risk areas across the slight and marginal risk, but we do have a SIG 1 area from central South Dakota into northeastern Kansas and northwestern Missouri, where we could see some hail from the size of golf balls to the size of baseballs tomorrow, so make sure you're prepared for this severe weather. Next, looking at our Day 3 SPC severe weather outlook, you can see for the Day 3 outlook, which would be for Monday, we have a large marginal risk of severe weather covering areas from eastern Colorado into southwestern Minnesota all the way into northeastern Georgia and much of South Carolina. For our probabilistic outlook, you can see it's basically just the same areas covered with a 5% severe weather risk, so nothing huge is expected as of now. But again, as previous days, we could see a slight risk added in future outlooks. Going down to the discussion here, we're talking about CABE within the 3 to 4,000 joules per kilogram range with 0 to 6 kilometers shear around 25 to 30 knots with dew points in the mid-60s to lower 70s. So there is going to be a decent environment, but it won't be super significant. But again, we could maybe see a slight risk added in future outlooks. Next, looking at the Day 1 excessive rainfall outlook from the Weather Prediction Center. You can see right now we have a slight risk of excessive rainfall mainly across central Montana for today. So if you're in the area, you will likely see some scattered flash flooding in the area. The marginal risk of excessive rainfall extends from northeastern Louisiana all the way to much of the Great Plains, all the way back into much of Montana there. And we also have another one across portions of the southeast, mainly portions of Georgia and South Carolina for today. So if you're in those areas, you could see some isolated flash flooding, but the risk is generally low for your area. Now looking at the day 2 flash flood risk, you can see we mainly have a marginal risk of excessive rainfall from much of Montana all the way down into portions of the Mississippi River Valley, all the way into a lot of the southeast United States. We have not seen a slight risk of excessive rainfall added, and at this point they may not, but it looks like a widespread isolated flash flooding risk, so make sure you still have multiple ways to receive flash flood warnings, but it doesn't look very significant, and we do not have a day 3 risk outline, thankfully. Now, looking at the National Hurricane Center's website, you can see we have one area to watch across the eastern Pacific Ocean. Right now, it has an 80% chance of formation within the next 7 days, so it will likely form into a tropical depression or tropical storm sometime next week, and it could even become a hurricane according to some models within the next 48 hours. The chance of formation is within 0% range, which means that the low pressure system has not yet formed, but a lot of the models are indicating this could become a tropical storm or hurricane sometime next week. This likely won't affect Hawaii at all, but make sure you follow my channel for more forecasts, and also continue to monitor the National Hurricane Center's official forecast for more updates when I do not have new forecasts out. Next, look at the Joint Typhoon Warning Center's official forecast for Jangmi now. You can see now is at typhoon strength at 65 knots or 75 miles an hour, and is continuing to strengthen, and the next update may be around 70 to 75 knots, which is 80 to 85 miles an hour. You can see the forecast has gone up a little bit now. It's expected to peak at around 85 knots, which is 100 miles an hour, which would make it a Category 2 equivalent typhoon there. And as it moves up towards those islands just to the south of Japan, including the city of Kadena there, you will likely be impacted as the storm is still around 80 knots to 75 knots, which 80 knots is 90 miles an hour, 75 knots is 85 miles an hour, so you have to prepare for a pretty significant typhoon, and that's just sustained winds. The wind gusts will likely be even higher, but thankfully the system won't be as large as it will be as it impacts other portions of Japan, as it heads up towards some of those other islands and impacts portions of southwestern Japan. You guys will likely see some tropical storm force to typhoon force winds, with sustained winds ranging from 40 miles an hour up towards around 80 miles an hour, so make sure you're prepared for that. And then eventually it will move up towards the Tokyo area, bring a prolonged sustained winds of around 40 to 50 miles an hour, with some gusts reaching up to 60 to 65 miles an hour, and at that point will likely be extratropical and continue to slowly weaken as it moves away from Japan. And at the end of the forecast on May 6th, you can see they have it at 50 knots versus 60 miles an hour, and again at that time will likely be extratropical as the wind field gets much, much larger. Now, looking at the current satellite imagery for Typhoon Jangmi, you can see right now is located several hundred miles to the east of the Philippines. Although right now it's as close as approach, there may be a little bit of rain from these storms inflow being pulled from over the Philippines, so you guys may be seeing some light rain over there, but right now it looks like it's starting to organize a lot more. It's starting to look like a traditional typhoon now. You can even see it's starting to have a little bit of an eye feature at the center, and there's some more thunderstorms starting to bubble up now. If we look at the satellite imagery loop over the past few hours, you can see it has been starting to strengthen some more with some more thunderstorms popping up, as I said, and it is continuing to move almost due north at this point towards those islands near Japan. So if you're in those islands, this storm will likely be there sometime for the next 24 hours, and I will talk about the preparations in a few moments from now. So, if you are in Japan, here's what you can do to prepare for Typhoon Jangmi. First of all, if you're on the Japanese islands just off the coast of southern Japan there, prepare for a typhoon with sustained winds around 75 to 90 miles an hour, maybe at the upper end there, with some wind gusts potentially reaching over 100 miles an hour. Make sure you have enough food for several days, enough water for several days. Make sure you protect your pets and important documents, and make sure everything else is secured that you need secured. And if you're in the mainland Japan, mainly southern Japan, including the Tokyo area, make sure you prepare for a tropical storm with sustained winds of around 40 miles an hour up towards 70 miles an hour, and make sure you're prepared for some wind gusts potentially reaching from 50 to 80 miles an hour there. Make sure you have enough food for a few days, enough water for a few days, and again, make sure your pets are protected, make sure important documents are protected, make sure everything else you need secured, and I will give you more updates if I need to in future weather forecasts. Anyways, that's the end of today's weather forecast. If you're in the affected areas in the severe weather risk over the next couple of days, make sure you're prepared for some very large hail, maybe a couple of tornadoes and stuff, sky-damaging wind gusts up to 70 miles an hour. And if you're in the path of Typhoon Jangmi in Japan, make sure you watch out for official forecasts from the Joint Typhoon Warning Center in the future, and also government and news videos that will help you know when to be prepared and how strong the storm is. And also make sure you're prepared and follow my channel for future weather forecasts, and I will see you on the next weather video. Goodbye!